We want more, and your contributions will be matched dollar to dollar by Mr. Naresh Jain. Let's give a big round of applause to Naresh Jain. We are going to start our session immediately now. Request Abhijit.
Welcome back. So the next item on agenda is the Entrepreneurship panel, and any program in Bay Area cannot end without a panel on entrepreneurship. So I would like to introduce the panel moderator, Jagdish Bandhole, 1995 computer science. Jagdish is currently CEO and co-founder of Mobile Force Software, and his previous venture was sold to Veritas. In last gathering, Jagdish was one of the panelists, and being the youngest member of that panel, I was amazed to see the insights he provided in that panel. And today he is playing the role of the moderator, and he would extract as much as possible from the panelists. So Jagdish.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute honor and privilege to be here moderating this panel. We have a phenomenal gathering of very, very successful entrepreneurs amongst us here. We have a small sampling of that here that I have in our panel session here. So what I'd like to do is, before I start the panel, I'd like to acknowledge the spirit of entrepreneurship and the great success of many of those here you already seen. Dr. Vedati, Zscaler team. There are many, many successful stories here. So I want to first give them a round of applause. And it's great to have, I'm the bacha in the team here. So I've got three pretty accomplished entrepreneurs who are all repeat entrepreneurs. Just a quick round of introductions here. I would like to welcome first Murli Thirumale. He graduated in 1982, did his MBA from Kellogg, and later on gone on after several years at HP. He co-founded Net6, got sold to Citrix. Then Ocarina, which was also venture funded, got acquired by Dell, and now he's on to his third one, Portworx, which is in the container space. So welcome, Murli. And next up is I have Rajeev Chawla, who graduated in 88, computer science and MS degree in computer science from Virginia, Commonwealth University, and he's also been a repeat entrepreneur. Prior to this, he had co-founded Neopath, which was acquired successfully by Cisco, and later on started his current company, Cloud Velox, and also several years of experience in the corporate world. Also worked at Healthion and WebMD and Sun Microsystems. So welcome, Rajeev. And last but not the least, we have Krishna Vedati, who is the co-founder and CEO of Tinker. A lot of you probably have heard about it. Your kids probably use it at school. It's a phenomenal service. I encourage you to check it out. It's a creative computing platform for kids to do fun things like games, apps, and class projects and other things. Krishna has previously co-founded two other companies. Both were acquired, very successful. Covigo as well as Bluesmo. Covigo acquired by Motorola and Bluesmo by AT&T. Krishna, great to have you. So what I'd like to do is start off the structure of this, I want to start off with a few questions for our panelists here. We'll try to mix it up. I'll try to make it fun, informative, and also controversial. But more importantly, I want audience participation here. Many of you have gone through this journey yourselves as entrepreneurs, as well as there are some budding entrepreneurs as well in the audience. So I want all kinds of questions. So we will try and reserve at least 20 minutes for the audience Q&A. So to start off with a couple of questions. One of the things that we always, as entrepreneurs, we go through this and we kind of, every now and then we have a chance to look back. And I always ask the question, the most important thing is the journey, right? The most important thing that you learn, more than your successes or your failures. So my first question is, all of you guys have done multiple startups. What are one or two of the biggest mistakes you've done in building companies that you can relate to? Who wants to go first? Murli? Eldest one.
Well, thank you for that.
I wanted to make it controversial, I said.
Folks, it's delightful to first of all see so many folks from BHU all gathered in one room. I think, every person from BHU that I know has somehow got a huge degree of nostalgia about the place. When we were there, we cursed it. When we were out, now that we're outside, we love it with all of our hearts. And I think I see that usually with every person I meet from BHU. Having said that, mistakes, there's many, many mistakes. I guess two that come to my mind is one is not firing somebody on the executive team who's not a good fit, firing them early, right? You, especially if they're a poor cultural fit, then in spite, interview mistakes happen, you sometimes don't reference enough. Whatever it is, once they come in, they're not a good fit, and you just hope against hope that they're going to get better or different. And as one of my co-founders in my last 3 companies said, you can't straighten a dog's tail. So, they're unlikely to change. So, that's been a mistake that I made. And I think you end up eventually firing them, but you should have just done it earlier. In the same vein, one of the things that I find was a mistake or that I've made, especially my first company, was around hiring the right type of salesperson. There are many salespeople with a huge record of success, but their success has come in many different ways. Many of them are large account managers, so you might hire them for their Rolodexes and history. You might hire them because they have an industry specialty and so on. But what I've found is mistakes where they're a bad fit for your type of stage of company, for example, is a huge problem. And it takes forever, right? You first 3 months, they just claim they're learning and they're on non-recoverable draws or maybe recoverable draws, so you're paying them. Then it takes another 3 months to figure out that they can't sell. And so 6 months after you've hired somebody, you discover they're no good, and then it takes another 3 months to get rid of them and get the other person in. So you've lost 9 months in the early stages, and that is a terrible problem. It's almost impossible to recover in some cases. So those are 2 mistakes that I've made.
Well, very good, very good. One quick thing I want to add there is what I've heard that sort of close to my heart, that one of the advices I've gotten previously is, if you're going to fail fast. That's something that is very, very important in startups. As you go out and build companies, you're bound to make decisions that's probably not good, and you'll end up discovering it, but don't prolong it. If you're going to fail, try it, fail fast, learn from it, pick it up, keep moving on. I think that's important. Rajeev, anything to add?
So, first of all, thank you for having me here, and I actually echo Murli's comments. In my 3 startups, I've gone through the same phenomena. Hiring the right people, and especially sales and marketing. That tends to be a really hard one, as Murli pointed out. especially in a very early days, there's really no repeatable sales process, there's no processes. And if you end up hiring somebody who comes from a big company, you're probably going to run into a situation where the person, especially the executive, is dependent on a complete support system which is lacking in the startup. So making sure the person you hire is also a doer, especially early days, is a very, very important aspect. And this is something which I think is easier said than done. I've made the same mistake more than once because when you interview them, everything checks out fine, the references check out fine, but until you start working with them is when you discover what you needed is not the right fit for this candidate. And the same thing about fighting, so I think they go hand in hand. So besides the team building, one mistake which, at least mistake or lesson I've learned in the previous company and even this company, it's trying to figure out the time when you think you want to increase your spend on marketing and sales, especially demand gen. You know, initially when you're starting the startup, venture funded, you have the runway which is based on the amount of money you have, you're building the product, but you have to watch out for the events when you know if you were to increase your demand gen spend, the returns are going to be pretty high. And perhaps a little conservative in that sense, and I've seen the same thing happen in my previous company where we waited longer than we should have to increase the spend. And what this means is essentially, you have to remember, if you're collecting leads today, the results are probably going to be 6 to 9 months out, which you learn as you start building the company, that you need to think, is this okay to increase the spend because you're anticipating when the returns are going to be. So this is one thing which, especially I'm an engineer by training, so thinking about these aspects has been a very important aspect.
So spending right and spending at the right time. Okay. Anything to add there, Krishna?
I actually had a different take on this. Good afternoon, thanks for having me here. So actually, I feel like when I first started my first company, I kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur versus not knowing why I wanted to do what I wanted to do. So kind of, ultimately, everybody else is doing various, so I want to start a company as well versus like, why did I start the company? What is my big vision? Where do I want to take it to? So I didn't have any bearings, so kind of ended up being a mediocre journey, and that's all. Second time around, I had actually thought about like what's the change I want to bring to. Had a much better outcome out of that, and then now today when I get up, at least I know all these points are great when you come into execution, but I think the core of why you want to start a company is extremely important. As to if you get up in the morning, do you still want to go to work, and do you still have the broader vision and mission that you want to go out and change, and everything else will take care of itself. I think that's probably the biggest learning experience for me.
Excellent point. I think most important, the number one thing is, are you having fun doing what you're doing? And is this something that you truly, deeply care about, right? So I think that's more important. That comes first, and then the business will follow. Following up on that, there's also been a lot of talk about going solo, starting companies on your own, teaming up with a group of people and kind of starting companies. There's a lot of market data about success rates of companies with single founders, multiple founders, etc. So I wanted to kind of take a crack here. I mean, I've actually gone the path of kind of doing solo, learned something from it, and actually in the next one I actually had a co-founder, and I think it was very valuable. And wanted to get the thoughts of the panelists here. What's your take on it? Go ahead, Krishna.
So my preference is to have co-founders mainly because you have certain skills and you want complementary skills in the team to kind of really execute the vision. Having said that, obviously there are amazing solo founders that have done amazing things. But in general, I think even when you raise money, a lot of investors are looking for a well-balanced team. They're also looking for a well-balanced set of founders that have complementary skills. So my preference is to have teammates. It also gives you checks and balances and keeps you grounded. So that's what I take.
So I'll add to what Krishna said. So I actually believe it's important to have co-founders, and not necessarily. So it'll be great if you had the co-founder which complemented your skill set. So in my case, at both the companies, Neopal and CloudVelox, there were multiple co-founders, and this is a team I've worked with for more than 10 years. But they all happen to be engineers. None of them brings a skill set, which is marketing and sales. So despite of having non-complementary skills or similar skills, the reason at least I feel is important is as you're building the company, you want to be able to at least initially work with a team who you can trust and not have to worry about any aspect. So if you know something needs to get done, you're not worried about how you're going to say it, you're going to say it the way you think about it because the other person has a relationship with you where there is no second doubting, there is no agenda there. And as the company grows and you bring in execs, the hope is you can retain the same culture, but at least early on, you have to really make sure you're speaking your mind. If things are not working out well, at least you have the other opinion, whether it's one co-founder or two co-founders, their brains are working and trying to figure out how to solve the problem. And the other thing which, as Krishna said, it actually helps to have multiple co-founders when you go fundraise. So more than one, at least I believe, is beneficial.
So related question to that, right, is one of the common things that comes up in every entrepreneur's mind is, when do I go to a VC? Do I start this on my own? Do I put my savings into it? Do I bootstrap this and take it, and then there are some people who believe, you got to go right off the bat to a professional investor, and that's probably a better path. Any opinions on what's worked, I guess, reflecting from your own experiences and from any of the connections that you got, obviously, in the Valley? We've certainly seen success, big time success in some of the companies which have been talked about, which have kind of been almost anti-VC, so to speak, and but there have been many successful companies that are obviously VC funded. What's your thought?
I guess I feel very strongly that you should only go to a VC when you have compelling evidence from customers that what you have is worth building, and not before, because a VC, first of all, is only investing in the team and the opportunity, and they may invest in you as a Generally, there are obviously, particularly with spin-ins from Cisco, there's a bunch of companies that are select companies where they were created to be acquired, but that was a pre-existing arrangement that you know, was sort of unspoken or spoken but not much publicly. In my view, just without a pre-agreement, building a company to get acquired is very, very limiting in terms of what type of customers you can go after, what type of markets you can chase, and frankly, it may never happen because there's always politics, there's management changes in the acquiring company, and unless you have a strong, thing that where they've already agreed to it, I wouldn't. What people, even in companies, that, everybody acquires somebody usually because they have some magical thing that didn't exist in the market, and you don't want to limit yourself to just one platform or one set of solutions. I think your valuation gets much, much lower with that. So I think the best plan is to go build a company that can be a standalone IPO-able company, and then, things happen as you are on that journey, and if you find that it's worth getting acquired, then you go do it. On a side note, I think there's way too much glamour and stupidity associated with going public. I think if you're part of, especially of the founding team, most of the time it's not to your advantage to get acquired. To go IPO. I think the economics and probabilities are much, much better to go get acquired.
Thank you. I'll turn it open to the audience. Questions? Let's mix it up. Yes, Tushar.
The thought comes from 1997 elected large. I have one specific question which relates to the discussion which just now happened. If there is an entrepreneur who wants to attack a multi-billion-dollar market, which already exists and there are entrenched players, but they want to probably develop something bigger or better, as Rajeev said, what are the factors they need to keep in mind as they're building a company? Because the bigger players are going to come after them with more money, more resources, better sales force. How do you actually conceptualize that? Because it's a much easier way to get 1% of a $10 billion market than to create a market on your own with the help of technology. I mean, clear what I'm thinking. Thank you.
Good question.
So there's a book called The Art of Start. There's a guy by Guy Kawasaki, and he makes this point that jump to the next curve. Like, if somebody's building, if you can build something amazing in that curve, like, there are phones, there's iPhone, so it's the same product, but, they're able to jumpstart and take away all the, like, maybe the modern version of, like, I don't know if you heard of a company called Stripe. It's a massive, there's a huge market out there, Visa, MasterCard, they take over, like, they're probably next unicorn, what they say now. So I think, if you're doing something amazing, the same product line that is like an order of magnitude different, and that kind of commoditizes and makes it available to millions of people then, and build it, and you'll be able to disrupt it.
One thing to add to that is, I think the key is you got to focus on the one thing you have as a startup is your ability to disrupt. It's very hard for large companies to move quickly. They're not as nimble. So you got to identify early on, what is the disruptive force? Maybe it's design, like in the case of Apple. Maybe it's pricing strategy. Somebody like Zoho.com, which took on Salesforce, right, and have done very well, right, based on the pricing strategy. So it depends on what's your disruptive angle. I think that's the key thing. If you're entering a multi-billion-dollar business, what's it that you can do much more easily, not resource-based, right, that other people, entrenched players cannot do, or will find it harder to do. I think that's something to keep in mind. Rajeev?
So I'll add to what both of you said. So it has to be, at least my belief, it has to be an order of magnitude better, faster, cheaper. decide the elements which you are going after for an existing market. Then you want to make sure as you're building the company, it's an execution play. The reason you can get that better, faster, cheaper, like you said, this is not a technology play. You need to out-execute the incumbents. So this is something which you have to keep in mind. So if it's an existing market, you have a product which is in one of the parameters, an order of magnitude superior, you can go into that market.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement. I would say my single word kind of advice would be don't. It's, you know, David Packard had a saying, he would say, don't take on a fortified hill, right? And especially with a 3-person army or whatever you are starting out with, you need an atom bomb, to use your disruptive example, to go take on a fortified hill. You can't do it with 3 guys waving spears. And so, from my viewpoint, unless you have something dramatically disruptive, that is what startups do, right? So, just going around, it's one of the biggest mistakes people make in an existing market is they think it's about the technology. And it may not be enough unless you are 10x or better. And it has a lot to do with sales. You know, there are huge segments of the market that are very, very tough to take on. You can't take on the Fortune 1000 against EMC because they have account control. You can't. So there's things like that have nothing to do with your technology. And so I think the onus falls upon you to do something significantly radical to take on an existing market.
Okay, well, I have to disagree on that. So,
I can see he's jumping.
So Murli won't get into my comment here, I can guarantee you. So if you can't disrupt an existing, I mean, most great companies are built on disrupting existing, players, and they're started by 2 people, 1 person. So my take on it is go take on them, as long as you have the broadest vision and have the capacity to kind of take on them and really differentiate it. I mean, there are countless examples of people going on, taking on big companies and really winning. For example, Airbnb is one of them. You want to stay someplace, and they figured out how to do it differently.
Well, so the first part of the disagreement came from the word don't. So I would encourage you to, even if you believe this, you have to get started, right? So if you believe you want to go and try something, I think you should. And if you have, of course, you have to look at, can you afford it? Can you do this? You should do that. So that was the first part of the disagreement. The second aspect of the disagreement was, so this is where I see the difference. Even though I have been involved mostly in the enterprise or the B2B, as it's been called, the consumer side is very different. Look, there's so many examples of the messaging apps or social networks. Search engine. I mean, Google came much later. So if you were entering a market which already exists, but you can go and disrupt it with a better product or better business model, I think that's something you should not ignore. And there's numerous examples in the consumer space where it's been done. And I think you mentioned Stripe being another example. So that's the disagreement on the enterprise versus the consumer side.
Thanks.
As Jagdish said, that I'm the oldest one on the panel, so it's great to see the brashness of youth.
Thanks, Murli.
Go ahead. More questions? Yes, Jay. Yes.
So what I want to ask you guys, I've been an entrepreneur for 27 years. Why you guys do multiple companies? Why can't you do one company and be innovative enough to trigger and move on and become something? So can you highlight on that? Because, I'd like to hear.
Perhaps we're solving small problems.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a very short answer, at least from my point of view. I'm stupid. So first of all, if you're doing a startup, be willing to sacrifice other aspects in your life. So it does take a toll, your social life, family life. So the way I tend to think of this is, so I have an 8-year-old now. You have 2 startups going on. So when I started Cloud Vlogs, she was pretty young. So having 2 startups in your life is not an easy problem, which unless you're prepared to tackle. So this is, so like I said, the short answer for me is you're stupid. But the reason you are being stupid is, so first of all, if you're trying to do startup because you think you'll make money, that's a wrong reason. Because you're better off probably joining somebody who is on a good path, good curve, go join and you'll probably make more money. The reason to go to a startup, at least for me, has been, it's like your baby, you thought of a problem, you're building a solution, and then you want the solution to be used by as many people as possible. And then this is like an addiction, and you fall for this, and there's no going back. At least that's me.
Yeah, I've both my first 2 companies, they got acquired, and I stayed on for a couple of years to grow that business, and it all grew significantly. And I'd worked at HP for 15 years before that, and I was a GM for a decade and stuff like that. I just found that I don't enjoy as much the growing of a business beyond where it's more of a focus on operational excellence. I really just enjoy the early part of growing a business. So there's a difference between a business being successful in the long term versus you doing all parts of that business. My first 2 companies, they're all successful businesses within the companies that they got acquired by. But I'm sure as hell glad that I'm on to this fun, wonderful new thing. So I think it's just an entrepreneur's, the palm itches to go do something new. You go scratch that itch.
Questions? Yes, please.
I have questions to all of you and probably the entrepreneur companies and probably not having a strategy and ending up selling the business and moving on to the next one. Does your drivers change over time? Intellect, maybe trying to solve a problem that you saw. Next was probably wealth creation. You saw an opportunity to create wealth. Third one probably would have been a societal commitment. Maybe you try to see how can I really be helpful back to the society, made enough money, been enough, prove myself intellectually. Does your priorities change over time as entrepreneurs? You've been 15, 20, 30 years as entrepreneurs. Or is it always the same bug that bites you all the time?
Very good question. I think, yeah, go ahead.
I think this is coming back to the question of building and selling companies. I think I ran out of steam. I mean, both the previous companies, there wasn't a big vision. I mean, it's just one solving a bigger problem. So I ended up, at some point deciding that, I'm done here. I'm like, you got to find a better place for it and just keep going. 99% of the time, that's what happens to most startups. I mean, that's just the natural nature of things. But the other one, and coming back to, maybe it is the state of mind, right? You're there in a big company, you're reaching to solve some problem, maybe perhaps. I mean, money is, will come if you are successful. And it just seems to be the trait among entrepreneurs, and say after 2-3 years, they just seem to have a bigger plan for change, and they don't see the change happening, so they just end up leaving. I mean, I have seen this again and again. So I'm not like, so that's perhaps what it is. And I think as you're becoming, like the one I've done this time, Tinker, is like a pain I've seen. My kids who are like always, consuming content, and I want them to be decision makers. I know how to program. So I said, okay, I'll go out and change that, and perhaps that's a mission that I'm really wedded to and willing to put time into it, a longer time. It drives me much, harder. So there are different angles to it.
And I think it's always been, in my case at least, it's a burning desire to contribute something to the society. I think it's something that you want whether it's friends and family or other people to be able to use, and sort of you look back a few years back and say, I did that, right? I guess it's just the gratification that sort of gets you going there. And then, you get involved with a lot of like-minded people, entrepreneurial, and kind of go from there, yeah. But it does change over a period of time, though, obviously, it's probably more brash. You learn a lot of things. We talked about a lot of mistakes, and you get a little bit more worldly wise. But I guess that's, part of the journey.
Just
I guess we are out of time here. Any other last questions? Yes, one last question.
This one should be easy for you. So, how much bank balance should we have before we quit our job? Please, go ahead. How much bank balance do we need to have before we start?
If you want to build a public company, zero.
So you know what, I'll answer that with my, what I've gone through. So the first startup which I did, Indian Systems, got acquired the same way much later after I left the company. I could survive 2 or 3 months on my own before I jumped into doing that. So again, everybody is different. You have to look at your risk profile, where you are in the family situation, because you have to make a mortgage payment, you have to worry about the family. So this is, again, depends on your risk profile. So like in my case, the first startup, there was nothing much, and I jumped into it thinking it'll be okay, and looking back, I think it was not a mistake. It was, yes, there were very stressful moments, but life goes on and you survive, right? So it really depends on you. So if you're thinking that you want to have a cushion for a very long time, essentially, look, okay, so I forget, this was another panel which we did some time ago. If you're trying to be analytical or rational about if you want to do a startup, you will never do one. The only reason or only time when you would go and jump into this is you have to be a little bit irrational. Otherwise, rationally, it does not make sense.
I completely agree with that last part. Most sane people probably wouldn't go actually and do it. My answer is 1 year, because I think no matter whether you're rational or irrational or passionate or not, it's going to take you 9 months to go validate, build a prototype, and raise money. I think assuming that it's going to be a little bit shorter is unrealistic, unless you're a repeat entrepreneur. So if it's your first startup, 1 year, and otherwise you may be, if you're alone, right, you can do what the hell you want, but it may put undue pressure on your family and so on. If you're stressed out in addition to not succeeding at the pace you want.
One last thought to add to that before we adjourn. As long as you have a roti, kapda and makan secure for a short period of time, go do it. There's enough people lined up on Sandil Road to give you the money. If you've got a great idea, go do it. Thank you so much.